Jury selection resumes tomorrow in the murder trial of Samantha Woll. She was found stabbed to death outside of her Lafayette Park home last November. The only suspect, Michael Jackson Bolanos, is charged with her murder. Joining us tonight to discuss is former federal prosecutor Rick Convertino. Rick, thanks for being here again today.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about jury selection. What is that process like, and how quickly do you expect this to move forward?
Well, each lawyer has a number of peremptory strikes and strikes for cause. Those peremptory strikes can be used for a basis upon which the attorney can justify that they're not used for race, creed, gender, or anything like that, according to a Supreme Court case. So they can strike jurors based upon their attentiveness or whether or not they think their backgrounds are conducive to their particular case. Then there's strikes for cause, which are limitless and basically they can strike if they don't think the jury can be fair and impartial, and the judge has to make a ruling on that, and that won't count against the attorneys. So the selection process will take a couple of days because of the notoriety of the case, but I anticipate they'd have a jury by Wednesday.
All right, and then when it comes to opening arguments, what are you expecting? We should say that Jackson Bolanos was not the initial suspect. There was another person of interest, and then that person was let go. And it took some time for them to develop Jackson Bolanos as a suspect. So what are you expecting from opening arguments?
I would expect that the prosecution would rely heavily on the jacket that was discovered in the defendant's apartment, with DNA samples that match to a substantial degree the DNA of the victim in this case. And that's kind of the only smoking gun that they have. There was video cameras that in various parts of the city that tracked the defendant to and from his apartment, but they were unclear. They weren't conclusive as to who that particular person was, but someone. And then there's some indication that the jacket that the person was wearing committed the act was the same jacket that was discovered in the apartment. But, you know, and the DNA is really the smoking gun, the DNA that was on the sleeves of the jacket that matched the victim in this case. So there has to be a lot of emphasis, I would say, on the prosecution's part, to the evidence that they have and the basis for the circumstantial case that they have, and the defendant will have to attenuate himself from the crime scene or the jacket. They're trying to explain how that jacket got into that apartment, or even I would expect that they would contest the DNA results, the expert DNA results. A lot of times, attorneys don't do that. It's so complicated DNA that the DNA isn't contested heavily during the course of a trial. This case, it should be. That would require an expert witness on the defendant's part, and those can be expensive and very detailed. But it's the kind of case where the defense attorney has to become an expert himself in DNA.
Yeah, how long do you expect this trial to last?
Probably 3 days, 2 or 3 days is all. There's not a lot of witnesses. There's not a lot of complicated evidence that has to be introduced. The video cameras, the jacket, the DNA expert, most probably from the Michigan Department of State Police Crime Lab. They're very good. But there's not a lot to this case. It's a pretty simple case. It's a circumstantial case. It's a tragic case. The victim was a prominent person in the Jewish community, and someone whose notoriety in the general public. So I think that picking a jury, you'll have to excise those jurors who knew the victim in this case, and you'll have to weed that out. But there's not a lot of complicated evidence in this case.
Yeah, and with that being the case, I mean, in your experience, have you seen that juries would have a difficult time with this, or do you think they might come to a quick decision?
I don't think the juror will have a difficult time with this. Basically, comes down to the to the jacket. How did the jacket? It's on the cloth that matched the victim. The jacket was seen on some of the videos that'll be introduced, and the videos that track the defendant from his apartment to the victim's house, and then back to his apartment over the course of a few hours. But those videos aren't very clear. They're not very concise, and they're certainly circumstantial. They don't show definitively the defendant himself. They're just a figure of someone coming and going. So, whether or not it was the defendant who did it, his jacket that he wore, somebody else wore the jacket, somebody else committed the crime. There was a lot of push and pressure in this case to come up with a suspect quickly. And as you noted in your introduction, they did arrest someone who was a person of interest, as they call them, and then was released. And then it started over again, and that's when they came up with this defendant and indicted him. It's a first-degree murder because it's a felony murder case. In other words, a felony was committed in the result of which a murder happened, and therefore it's a first-degree murder, which is a life sentence. So it's a very, very serious crime. But whether there was a rush to the judgment and a rush to arrest somebody, that's to be seen.
Yeah, well, we will be following this trial very closely. Rick Convertino, as always, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Shana. Have a good night.